First tonight, it's thought that 1 in 4 of us will suffer some sort of mental illness in the course of a year. So why are so many patients here in Yorkshire having to wait months to access the right treatment?
Latest figures show that thousands of people in the region are waiting longer than the government's target time to access therapy. Well, York North's been contacted by one 19-year-old from North Yorkshire with chronic anxiety. She's been waiting months for the right treatment. Her GP has now questioned whether she should go privately to avoid the wait. Here's our health correspondent, Jamie Coulson.
19-year-old Emma from Selby has suffered with mental health problems throughout her life. Last Christmas, bouts of anxiety and depression led to panic attacks, and at times she was unable to leave the house or go to college.
I can be really tearful at times, and it can just almost come on and it can sometimes take over. However, even if I'm feeling like on top of the world, it can just sometimes get on top of me and just bring me right back down.
Emma was referred by her GP for therapy in January. She had to wait 7 weeks before she was offered treatment, but when that began was immediately identified as needing more intensive support. Months later, she's still waiting for that to begin, and her GP has now questioned whether she could go privately.
I think it's quite disgusting, really, how long you have to wait for treatment that can be life-changing, really.
Emma's case of trying to find the right help in the right time frame is not unique, and latest figures suggest that even once someone has been referred, there can be a wait for treatment. In the first 3 months of this year, over 259,000 people in England were referred for psychological therapies. Here in Yorkshire and the Humber, that figure was over 25,000. But at the same time, over 13,000 had to wait longer than the target time of 28 days to access care.
If somebody's identified as needing help and they're offered help, and then there is a long wait, the critical window of time can be missed when they can be helped before the depression becomes maybe a very disabling and crippling illness.
The NHS Trust responsible for Emma's care says it has experienced a steady increase in referrals, and waiting times have become longer than they would wish. In a statement, they point out that current funding levels give a shortfall of over 27.5 trained workers in York and Selby compared to national requirements. They say their commissioners are aware of this shortfall, and they're working closely with them to explore ways of using their limited resources to best effect. For now, Emma's wait for the right care continues, with no real indication of how long it could take. Jamie Coulson, BBC York North.
The chief executive of the York branch of the mental health charity Mind says the problem is widespread.
It is across the whole country, and in particular in Yorkshire and Humber. We know that the waiting times for psychological therapies are much higher in this area than they are in other parts of the UK.
We've always accepted, I think, that the mental problem is something which has not been done fairly. There's always been, I don't know, a kind of stigma to it, really, and there shouldn't be. It should be on a parity with other illnesses, shouldn't it?
It should indeed, and one of the really reassuring things we've seen in recent years from the last government, from this government, and from the NHS is a real desire to put mental and physical health on parity. Within the new NHS constitution, it's actually written in there that mental and physical health should be treated with parity of esteem.
Now, it's easy, of course, to say, well, GPs are just giving out Prozac or whatever, but are they not concerned too that the delay is such that they've got to give something to give short-term relief, whether that's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do?
Indeed, and there's a huge pressure on GPs to give patients something when they come to the surgery. But what we do know from the evidence base is that talking therapies work, and often talking therapies work much better than drug therapies.
What's the impact on a patient's life, really, when the delay is unacceptable or they get the wrong kind of treatment?
It can be absolutely devastating, not only because that person is acutely unwell and needs help, but also for their own self-esteem, for the stigma that they're facing. It's almost as though the severity of the condition that they're living with just isn't recognised. If you imagined turning up an accident in emergency with a broken leg and being told you've got to wait 28 days for treatment, there'd be an uproar. In mental health, that happens all the time.
And of course, it has an impact on the economy as well, doesn't it?
It does. It has an impact across all sections of society, around employment, around welfare benefits, around physical health, relationships, everything that we touch.
David Smith, thank you.
Thank you.
Next tonight, rail passengers in Yorkshire are being urged to keep their valuables and luggage safe as police try to cut down on unprecedented rise in theft.